Invitation to be authentic is about stopping buying in to stuff that's not true. Stop listening to the other people's versions of what our life is supposed to look like. Absolutely. To be authentic, we have to be, you see, when we're pretending, we're agreeing. In this story, she agreed to buy into the kid's story and then scared herself. Do we do that? Do we do that in so many ways? We buy into what the media tells us, what our institutions tell us, what our families tell us, what our religions tell us, what our relationships tell us, what our employers tell us, what our friends tell us, what society tells us. And let me tell you, the list of the ways that we're supposed to fit in, the stories that we're supposed to be living, they go on forever. Don't they go on forever? They're about our credentials, our accomplishments, the right kind of work, how old we are, how much we weigh, how athletic we are, how well we dance, what our fashion statement is, right? All of these, how much stuff we've got, and what kind of stuff, and is it the right label, and all this stuff. We really get these stories going around in our life experience, and so we get hooked. We get hooked on someone else's ideas, some other institution's model or judgments about what it's supposed to look like. And when we get hooked by all of this stuff and start taking it personally, I don't fit in. I need to fit in. I need to be liked. I need that, whatever that thing is or that quality is. I need that. If I don't have that, what are people going to think? And so this capacity for us to be authentic with who we really are, all of our glorious, radiant divinity expressing as who this is this time around, gets kind of shaky. We get nervous, we get vulnerable, like Glenda said. See? Don Miguel Ruiz has a very wise invitation. Don't take anything personally. Well, I got news for you. In my life, I seem to take a lot of stuff personally. Do you? We take stuff personally. It's what we do. See, and when we do that, we tend to forget who we really are. We forget our divinity. We forget this radiant being that we really are, beyond all the stories and the judgments and all this other stuff. The true authenticity of who we are is really this radiant spark of the divine. That's who we really are. And boy, it is not easy to remember that when we're in the world. When we're in the world, it's not easy. So the challenge is, how do we go through life not being phony, not trying to fake it, being able to really not care what other people think? That's tough. That's very tough. But when we're comfortable with who we are, we can drop the strategies, we can drop the pretenses, we can be free, like Glenda said, we can move through our life experience in a much softer, gentler, easier way. To be able to be transparent and open and honest enough not to hide our flaws, not to hide how we don't fit that big long list of criteria, that the stories that we think we're supposed to be living, to be able to show up just in our pure raw beauty. And I mean that. Our pure, raw beauty, whatever it looks like, at any age, in any state, is really this idea of being authentic. And it requires us to know who we are, to know who we are, to be able to accept our experience as a human being right now, today, as it is. Wrinkles, warts, funky hair, whatever it is, all of that as it is, and present ourselves the best way possible. Now, I'm not saying that we don't get to dye our hair red and have fun. I'm not saying that we don't get to do the best we can with what we have to work with. Don't hear me say that. I can't live that. I'll never talk about anything I can't live from this platform. Don't hear me say that. We have fun with this body temple. I'm not saying that. But to accept who we are in our present condition, do the best we can with what we got to work with, and show up with our beauty and with our shortcomings, whatever those might look like, based on the stories that the society or whatever is presenting to us. Not every one of us is a doctor. Not every one of us drives a Ferrari. Not every one of us, has a villa in Italy. Some people do. Good for them. We don't have to have that. Those are gross examples of what I'm talking about, you see. To be willing to show up as a divine rascal. You know who's the greatest divine rascal I can think of right now? And it looks like she's not showing up authentic, but she is. Who knows Lady Gaga in her meat dress? Okay, well, I want to tell you something. Lady Gaga is a perfect example of an authentic being at the core of who she is. She knows who she is. Now, does she show up kind of weird on the outside? You betcha. But her message is about authenticity. And her message is about being bullied as a child because she didn't fit the model. And she, in her authenticity, is giving permission to everybody else to be their own authentic, radiant beauty selves, beautiful selves. She doesn't look very authentic on the outside. I don't know if I'd look too good in a meat dress. But what I'm saying is, this is her message. Be authentic. Be who you are. Stand proud in who you are. Remember the truth of your being. Remember the beauty that you are. It's not necessary for us to believe what other people think about us or what other people want us to be. When I say other people, I'm including society and the media and the beauty magazines and the car magazines and all the stuff that tell us that this is the only way for us to be awesome. No, it's not. When I know who I am, it doesn't matter what anyone else tells me I am or should be. I get immune. I like that idea. I'm immune. I'm not affected. I'm like Teflon. When I know who I am, I don't need to be told by anybody or anything else. I know who I am. And this is part of my knowing who I am. This is a purely personal statement. When I know that who I am is a reflection of the divine and that through grace, everything I am is given to me to live as me. Does that make sense? Did I say that? So if I can create beauty, I don't create the beauty. It is the energy of the divine that creates the beauty. If I can bring peace and harmony to a situation, I don't do that. It is that energy of the divine that's doing that. Am I making myself clear? It's not, in the Christian tradition, it's not I but the Father within me that is doing the work. If I think I'm the one that needs to do all this and be all this, I'm in trouble. When I know the truth, and that it's the divine within me that's showing up, really not a whole lot else matters. Not a whole lot. Who remembers To Tell the Truth? We're fascinated. That was one of the longest running, most enduring game shows during the 50s and 60s. Well, what was the whole premise? We're fascinated with figuring out who's real. Who's real? Will the real so-and-so please stand up? We've got all these stories about, and this is my invitation to you. Will the real Donna please stand up? Will the real stand up? Will the real stand up? Will the real stand up? Not somebody else's idea of what it needs to look like. What does it take? Okay, so I'm going to close with this story. David, go to the next image. I love this story. It's a children's story. But what it takes is a willingness for us to let the winds of life move through our life experience as they will. Because every one of us is subject to whatever that is. We don't get to control a lot. Have you noticed? Most of what happens in our experience happens without our permission. We don't get to decide where the wrinkle shows up. We don't get to decide how life presents itself to us most of the time. That's just a fact. That is just a fact. So it takes heart bravery to be authentic, to be willing to be sometimes misunderstood, sometimes rejected, and sometimes seen as foolish. And that's the core of my story here. To be able to come from a quiet heart, to do what is yours to do the best you can with what you have to work with, and just kind of let it happen. So this is the story. The story is called The Empty Pot. It's a children's story. And it's a story about a Chinese emperor who needed to choose a successor. And he was wild about flowers and about plants. So what he did is he called all the children in the kingdom together, and he gave every single child a seed and told the child, go plant this seed, and after a year, please bring back your plant and show me what you have grown, and I will choose a successor. Well, one little boy, Ping, who was supposed to be the best flower grower in the whole kingdom, did his very best. He did everything he could to make his little seed grow, and nothing happened. And so a year later, when it was time for all the children to come to the emperor so he could choose his successor, here comes little Ping with an empty pot. And all the other children had these magnificent blossoms of one sort or another. They were fabulous. Well, when the emperor saw Ping's empty pot, he said, you come here. You're the one. You are the successor. The reason? He had boiled all the seeds. He had boiled all the seeds, and there was no possible way that any of those seeds could have sprouted. And so every other child in the kingdom was not authentic. They didn't want to risk looking foolish. They didn't want to risk not fitting in. Ping did his best, and he brought his empty pot, and he showed the quality of authenticity that was needed as a leader. That's why I like this story. I like this story. So remember, we got to just stop pretending. Stop pretending this seed's ever going to grow. Go ahead and do your best. Do what's yours to do. Show up. Stop trying to fit in and live somebody else's version of your life. Live your own version of who you are. Present yourself as you are, who you are, in your total beauty and your total shortcomings, because we're all divine rascals, just like Lady Gaga. Remember, it's going to take heart bravery to be authentic. You got to be willing to sometimes be misunderstood, to sometimes be rejected, and to sometimes look pretty silly, to be foolish. Anybody notice that in their life journey? Yeah. Because when you know who you are, you live more peacefully, you live in a state of grace, and your life is not dependent on any of that long list of ways you're supposed to fit in, or whether or not other people accept you, what they think about you. And the gift, you know what the gift is? When you're authentic, guess what? You give everybody you come in contact with permission to be just as authentic as you are. And that's a tremendous gift. Thank you for listening.